Welcome to this edition of the B2B Engagement Podcast. I'm your host, Gavin Finn with Kaon Interactive, and today we're discussing how to navigate go-to-market strategies in technology-driven markets. And we're very privileged to have with us today Mark Czaja, who's the Chief Technology Officer at Parker Hannifin. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks. Nice to be here, Gavin.
It's really an honor to have you on the podcast. And before we get started talking a little bit about the industry and some of the insights that you've gleaned over the years, perhaps you could give us a quick background in terms of how you got started in your career and what led up to your ascension to the role of Technology Officer at Parker Hannifin.
Sure. Professional career started at Parker Hannifin. I joined the company right out of college. My father worked in aerospace, and so I've always been interested in airplanes. And so when I had the opportunity to work for a company like Parker Hannifin, it was really a privilege. So I started at our aerospace group based out of California. And at the time, they had a rotation program where we could spend time there were 5 divisions in Irvine at the time that we could spend time with doing various things. And then at the end of that first year, they asked each of us, where would you like to work? And we put our list together. And of course, they put their own list together because they were reviewing us as we went through. And I was really very excited because I got my first choice. I wanted to be a design engineer doing flight controls. And at our flight controls division in Irvine, I started with a very large drafting board at the time and started designing flight controls and worked my way from being the junior engineer working in the team to becoming a senior member of that team to leading a team, ultimately becoming the division engineering manager for that division at Parker Hannifin. And then within aerospace, we had a number of different divisions. And so it formed the aerospace group. And so after a few years, the person who led engineering for the group retired, and I had the good fortune to land that position. So I'm becoming the vice president of technology for the aerospace group, a role which I held probably about 15 years,
Hmm.
working with all of our customers, all of our divisions in aerospace. I was just really excited about being a part of developing new programs, helping the teams within the divisions. Really enjoyed the role, still based out in California. And so that brings me to about 35 years into my career when I got the call from the team at corporate headquarters. And they said, "Hey, Mark, we'd like to start getting you involved in some of the other areas of Parker Hannifin." At the time, really 80% of the business at the time was not aerospace. It was in mobile equipment and it was motion and control in the factory. And long story short, they made a compelling case. I moved to Cleveland, Ohio, started working with our motion systems group as the VP of technology. And so now instead of Boeing and Airbus, it was Volvo and John Deere and Caterpillar. And again, a very exciting point in my career, drawing from some of the things that were successful for Parker and the aerospace group, bringing that into the mobile and industrial side of the business was a lot of fun. And then the person in my current role, the chief technology officer for the company, he retired and I had the very good fortune to take over this role. It's been about 3.5 years.
Hmm.
And so now I get to work with all of the groups, all of the divisions, really all of the customers at Parker Hannifin. And what a privilege it is to be in a role like this. I'm certainly having a lot of fun, and I'd like to believe that I'm helping the company forward their objectives, solving challenges with our customers. So that's the history.
That's a really inspiring history, I'm sure, for many people, particularly those of us who are technical in backgrounds, to listen to the sort of the ascension and the change in your roles. And particularly, a number of words struck me that I think are relevant to our conversation today. One of them is that you talked about working with customers. And when we think about technology and engineering driven organizations, the sort of the old school way of thinking about things was there's a bunch of engineers and technologists in the back rooms there on their drafting boards and then CAD systems, and then customers would buy them. And the way that you talked about customers, first of all, the privilege word you used, and then also the way that you talked about working with them, I think represents a big change, potentially in the way that your career has evolved also, but in the way that companies work, engineering, technology-driven companies work in the world today. And it's no surprise that you have this philosophy, given the fact that Parker Hannifin is a leader in sort of customer-driven innovation. And I wonder if you might talk a little bit about the philosophy around how customers are now and your personal interest and philosophies around customer-driven innovation and technology development as opposed to pure research and development on the part of the companies that provide those technologies.
Yeah, and I really think that there has been a shift at probably within the industry, but certainly within Parker Hannifin.
Mhm.
We're a motion and control company, and when you look at how we move things, whether that be on an aircraft or in farm equipment or in mobile equipment or in the factory, there is a lot of technology involved. And yes, we do research and development, and we do look towards what is the right, best technical solution. But rather than developing our catalog of what we think are all of the best solutions and then trying to go out and sell it, what we've done is we've really tried to position ourselves as a partner with our customers to really where I'd say that we end up probably providing the most value is when the customer brings us into the conversation early. We bring some of that background, the over 100 years of experience in various motion and control technologies. Yes, we have engineers and subject matter experts, but rather than going to a customer and saying, here, let me show you all of the ways I can solve that problem. What we do is try and really listen first to what is the problem that we're trying to solve. And where I think that we've provided the most value is by listening first, really understanding the challenges where today they may have a solution that's adequate, but it's not really providing the complete solution, the complete answer that they're looking for. We can fill the gaps and draw from that subject matter expertise to really then go back and develop the products that are specifically targeting to meet their unmet needs.
It's really a big transformation, not just in the approach that you take with customers, but that then filters down into how you organize your company and even the kinds of people that you bring into the company to adopt that sort of cultural transformation. I think that, as you said, your approach has been to start with those key problems and challenges, understand the value of solving it, and then build products and technologies and solutions that deliver on those value propositions. That's a fundamentally different approach. While it's a subtle and perhaps nuanced difference, it is a fundamentally different approach. And I think it does yield the business benefits that you've seen as a company. I wouldn't want to underestimate the leadership role that you and Parker Hannifin have built in this area. What do you look for when you're identifying talent and skill sets for technical folks who need to be able to have technical conversations? What's different today, or what do you look for that allows them to build that trust and that relationship and understand value driven innovation first, which compares very differently from what used to be the case?
Yeah. So sometimes it's helpful to make an analogy, and I may not always be the best person to make a sports analogy, but it's about building a winning team. And I would say historically and justifiably, we built a lot of subject matter expertise, very deep understanding of products and how to design them, make what we think is a premier product within the industry. And it's not well, do this instead of that. It's really an and, not an or. We want to continue to build on that strength of design engineering. It's a core strength within the company, and I think it's part of where we bring value. The and part of the equation, though, is really fielding the team of having the component expertise
Mhm.
and then having subsystem systems engineering type expertise rounding out all of the players on the field so that you've got the right coverage. When we talk about being a partner with our customer, having, maybe an impressive title on a business card might get you in the front door, but it's not going to keep you there. It's not really going to bring you into their development. You have to demonstrate that you've got something to offer them. Now, we no longer have the drafting board or the CAD station. So today, I'm really more focused in on building that team, architecting the processes and the systems that we use. And to me, that's very fulfilling. Now, clearly, the customer knows what vehicle, what factory, what solution they're trying to solve. But how can we ideally augment and maybe embed ourselves within that team so that we're playing a role? It's not just we're waiting for a requirement specification and then we design to that. In the perfect world, we're helping define that requirement statement. Yes, we need to have the right technical solution. Yes, it needs to be delivered on time and quality parts and everything that one expects from the operations. Yes, we have to achieve the financial objectives that work both for us and for our customers. But really understanding and being a part of it allows us to hopefully solve that equation differently today than maybe we've done in the past.
Well, I think you've hit on a couple of very important points there, one of which I'd like to dive into a little bit first and get to another one later. The first one is this notion of systems thinking and systems engineering. And the reason I think that's important is because it doesn't just apply within the technical organizations, which are, building a system to support the customer or understanding how the components fit together and what the trade-offs are and how to think about performance from a systems perspective. But you have to think about the company's systems as well. And one of the things that I think is a key to success is the system of how your organization, the technical teams across all of the divisions, work with the other teams in the companies to bring these to life and also bring them to customers, the sales teams and the marketing teams. And of course, the corporate teams, analyst relations, and all the others as well. You have a variety of constituents at a big public company. What do you do that brings this level of success from a systems perspective, the entire system of the company, to work with the sales teams and the marketing teams to help everybody understand that customer centric relationship that you're building, and then be able to convey that value differentiation so that you can, in fact, get in the door and build those relationships at the technical level.
And I think that's part of building the culture, maintaining a culture, and then when appropriate, shifting the culture.
Mhm.
And I would say as a company, engineering has always been very core to Parker Hannifin. I would say today that's still the case, and engineering needs to really be a part of our total ecosystem within the company. We have to design parts that can be manufactured and supported by the operations. We have to work with the supply chain. We have to work with finance and accounting. Really, that traditional silo type organization is something that we're really trying to get away from. And by really approaching it at a systems level than at a, say, just technical component level, it enables a different conversation and it enables us to, I think, solve the bigger picture as well as at the individual component level as well.
That does play into, I think, an industry trend of being able to satisfy multiple constituents. When you're dealing with a systems level set of value propositions, somebody may not get their optimized value. Maybe it's the pneumatic performance may not be as great as the engineer wants, but the manufacturability is much more optimized, or maybe sustainability from an environmental point of view. And so I think when you're thinking about these, just having that mindset then looks to balance and do trade-offs and let everybody understand why their trade-off is important. And the customer needs to have a team that understands that. And I think that leads to a need for you to, particularly on the marketing side, have a great relationship with the marketing team so that those value propositions can be clearly communicated because you deal with a very complex world. The technology itself is complex, the systems are complex, and breaking that down into very straightforward, easy to understand value propositions is probably a key to success. And I wonder if you have any lessons learned that you might share about how to work with the marketing teams to really align around those key value propositions so that they can communicate
Yeah.
crisply those multiple value stories within each system.
Yeah. And you brought up the term simplification, and that's really something that resonates within Parker Hannifin from simplification of our business systems internally, simplification in our operations to eliminate waste. But from a engineering product development standpoint, I would say simplification really also plays, and that's part of how we're
Mm.
trying to also shift the culture. Part of I'd say, our role in engineering, yes, we're solving what are, in some cases, challenging technical opportunities.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's math and there's science and there's materials and there's But how do we simplify that? How do we really do all of the technical things that we need to do to provide that optimized solution? But then when we're communicating both internally with the rest of our business teams, the sales and marketing team, how do we simplify that? How do we simplify that with the customer as well? Now, we're prepared to go as deep as you want to go in terms of the technical solution. But when, for instance, you brought up sales and marketing, one of the things that we're really trying to do is enhance that bond between the engineering development team and the sales and marketing team so that we're working hand in hand. And in some cases, like we'll take some of the newer areas like electrification. When we talk about how we're optimizing motors and motor control, and how does that now impact system performance, we've developed some communication that tries to help simplify all of that so that when the sales and marketing team goes out, they've got a pretty good grasp of our approach and why we think that's an important way to solve the equation and how it's going to provide value, rather than saying, it's pretty complicated. I don't think you're going to understand this. No, 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 that's wrong. What we really want to do is simplify this and bring everybody on board with the approach and explain, here's why we're going down this path, and here's why we think it's a good solution. And maybe if you can now articulate that to the customer, then we can now engage at this different level that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. There's one other aspect that we haven't talked about, which is the breadth of industries that you serve and the very large product portfolio, but also the way that you think about how to leverage that experience from one industry to another or from one product set or technology development area. And I wonder if you have any maybe examples or anecdotes relative to how you've been able to bring cross industry expertise to customer situations to help them think differently about their own situations. Because I would imagine that the breadth and depth of your both product and technical organizations really allows people to bring a perspective that very many customers may not have just because of their focus.
I think you raise a good point. And for me, this is one of the funnest, most rewarding parts of my job. When I came into the role, Parker had a lot of strength, and we have groups that are kind of organized around the capabilities that we have. So we have a deep knowledge base in filtration and in engineered materials and in fluid conveyance. And we have all of this capability, but sometimes it's difficult to connect all of that internally. There's so much there. And part of my role and having the vice presidents of technology in each of the groups, we have this now forum where we now share what we all have. So now we're all more aware of the tools in the toolbox. And so we have multiple examples of where we've been able to take technology. So maybe just highlighting a couple off of the top of my head from my career. I mentioned electrification earlier, and electrification is one of the secular trends. We're seeing, in particular in the mobile space, a number of our customers who are saying, hey, we want to have a transition plan that relies less on fossil fuels, but now brings in an electrified solution. Today, maybe that becomes a hybrid, or maybe you bring in battery power. Down the road, maybe it's a hydrogen-powered fuel cell, but we're bringing more electrification into construction equipment, into farming equipment, into mining equipment. We're getting customer pull for solutions in that area. And the fun part of this is, hey, you know what? I've seen this movie. We've run through some of these challenges on the aerospace side. And we have now taken some of what was maybe a pure hydraulic solution, and we've brought in electric motors and motor controllers and brought in electrohydrostatic actuation, and we brought in electromechanical actuation. And so we're drawing on decades of experience in aerospace and now applying that in the mobile markets. And it's helping accelerate bringing those solutions to bear. I think it's helping us engage our customers maybe at a different level because we can draw from a different industry. But it's not necessarily always, oh, cool aerospace tech going into mobile. We go the other way around too. I remember on one of the, I won't name the customer, I won't name the program, but we had just won a hydraulic system on one of the large named commercial transports. And wow, to meet the pressure and the flow and the weight, our traditional technology wasn't going to meet all of those system parameters. We leveraged what we were doing on the mobile industrial space. And in those pumps that are very robust and operating in very harsh conditions, we did a design trade off of what we were doing and what we were doing in the mobile space. We found several design solutions that were working very well that we could bring into aerospace. It allowed us to design, in this case, the hydraulic system pump, the very core of that hydraulic system, and reduce the size, reduce the weight, reduce the complexity, because we were drawing on, in this case, decades of performance in the industrial side. I could go on and on about examples from industry to industry, but having that now over 100 years of experience at Parker Hannifin, when you look at the company, and if you look at all of the markets that we serve, one of the real rewarding parts of the job is when a customer says, "Hey, we've got a challenge." And we can go, "We've seen something similar over here. Let's have a discussion around this." Now, it might not be plug and play, but it gets you 80% of the way there. And then you're off and running with a solution where we probably were able to solve that challenge both better and faster because of the breadth of capability that we have. And because we've tried to now build the connective tissue within the company that allows us to draw from that. It doesn't necessarily have to just come to one person, but really we've tried to now network our capabilities within the company such that those connections are happening not just at my level, but at multiple levels within the organization.
Yeah, I would imagine the customers really appreciate getting that kind of perspective because it accelerates their problem solving, but it also brings innovation to
Right.
their solutions in both of those areas. I think the other thing that's been changing that was highlighted in your systems thinking is that the customers and the market has shifted fairly dramatically. And I think there's a shift in the way companies, your customers, buy. It used to be, I think, a little bit more tactical and perhaps more straightforward in terms of number of people involved in making buying decisions. Of course, at big programs, there's a complex process. But today, we're seeing that customer purchasing decisions are getting more complicated and they're taking longer, and the customers have more groups involved from finance to operations and manufacturing and all of their teams, which I know you're very used to using. But one of the big differentiators that has been really becoming more critical for large technology-driven enterprises is that whole customer experience. And working with a company like Parker Hannifin, and just the ability to have those simplified discussions, the value-based discussions, it doesn't always come down to performance and price and all those good things. It's part of the mix today. And I wonder if you could speak to a little bit about how you and your organization across the entirety of the organization is working with the rest of your teams to simplify and enhance and create better customer experiences to address this shifting market dynamic.
Yeah, and here's an area where we are very focused, and I'd say we've made some progress. And I'd also say it's never done, right? And even though I'd say we've made some strides, and on the one hand, we should feel good about that, I still think that we have a ways to go here. We talked about simplification being a core tenet within Parker Hannifin, within how we design the products to our operations and leaning out and eliminating waste. We're really looking to do the same thing with how we interact with our customers. We would like to be easy to work with. Clearly, at the end of the day, our customers, when they're buying product, they want quality parts on time. They want a premier product that works, high reliability, table stakes. We have to do that, and we're focused in on doing that. But we also have to be easy to work with. Help me identify what those right products are. If there is a challenge, help me from a service standpoint resolve that challenge quickly. We really do care about that customer experience. We're really looking to improve that experience and be easy to work with. Now, we need to do all of the right things to enable that to happen. we'd like to go in with, man, that would be my preferred solution. Now it's on us to have the right product at the right price with the right delivery and the right service, but making it more easily available. And that's where, again, I'd say that we're transforming as a company, not just Parker, probably within the industry, but back to when I first started, I remember all of the catalogs that you would go out and make sure your catalog was on the desk at every engineer, at every customer, and in their procurement office. I'm not even sure if we print catalogs today. And so it's really more business of people working with people, and it's transforming how we do business online. A lot of our customers have now grown up with the idea of, if I want something, I go onto the internet, I do a little bit of research, and then I know I can go to various services and buy that product online, which is not traditionally how people have bought Parker type products 50 years ago. But we want to be in a position now where you can do that research online, have technical experts available to help you with that decision making online, make it easy to buy parts. And then, like I said, in some cases it's they know what they want or they think they know what we want. We'd like to guide them to that component. If it's more, no, we're developing a system, then we need to, okay, contact us. And now we'll bring our team to work with your team to interact. Maybe that's beyond just solving it in an online transaction, but that's more of working with our customer experience and becoming kind of part of their development team in the development of OEM equipment.
I think that is a world that, as you said, it's you're not going to ever be done, and certainly not done today. But I think there's a misunderstanding. I think at least on the part of some industry teams who think that anything complex we need to do fully in person because it's just too complex to do with this digital component. And what we're finding is across industries, even for very complex solutions, the customer wants to make some progress by themselves
Right.
online. They want to do that themselves. And then at some point, they're going to engage. And maybe they'll go back to online for some other parts, and then they'll come back to the team engagement. And I think this is one of the challenges that the industry in general needs to address if that customer experience is really going to be transformed. I do think Parker Hannifin is a leader in that area as well. I know you see all of the mountains to climb ahead of you, but it would probably do you some good to turn around a little bit and say, look how far we have come, I think, under your leadership as well.
Yeah, and that's right. I think we're a different Parker Hannifin today than maybe we were even just a few years ago. And back to that, it's an and, not an or. We want to have an online experience that's world class, that does enable our customer to transact with Parker Hannifin in that online environment because that's their expectation. That's what they want. And so we want to provide that experience.
And I think do it well at every step of the way. And I think your customer engagement with excellence is probably one of the other attributes that sets you apart. Earlier on, you mentioned this a couple times, but as we come to a close here in our discussion, regretfully for me, because I would like to continue for hours, but I'm sure we could maybe pick this up in another session. But one of the things you mentioned a couple of times is that you found yourself in a fortunate position. You're very fortunate to have a new role offered. But my experience is that, yes, there is some good fortune in some of these, but the predominant characteristic of your enormous capacity to work with people of all types and skill sets and focus areas. The other is to have this systems level business integration mentality as well, which I think sets you apart individually. So I know that our audience will be very appreciative of the lessons that you've learned and you've shared here today. I really want to thank you for the time and for the opportunity to engage. It's been such a great pleasure, Mark. Gavin, really
Do
do.
appreciate the opportunity to talk and all the best to you and your team.
Thank you so much.